Developers are makers. At least, that is how it is expected to be. In today's world, makers are impressing us to that extent that the side hustles are no more the side hustles. They are taking the main space. They are becoming the main project. What takes someone to spend so much of energy and time to do side hustles, side projects outside of their regular job? Even people not working full time, they are also ideating, building, and creating something for the global developer community. Why and how these people are so special? I have a very high gratitude, I have a very high respect for all the makers out there. And today we are going to talk to one of such maker. Hey, this is Tapas. Welcome to the first episode of the tapaScript Lab podcast. So, in today's episode, our focus is on the maker story, and I have a very special guest. The person whom I know for last 3 years, he is a great maker, a great developer, and a person who is always thinking about building something while learning something new. So, without any further delay, let me introduce you to today's guest, Akash. We have Akash with us today. And what a coincidence that Akash is the first guest of tapaScript Lab. So it's weekday. I know, like you probably were in office, you're doing work, and in that you taken the time for this podcast. How about you? And what about you? You want to introduce yourself once quick?
Yeah, sure. First of all, thank you for inviting me. I remember we had this conversation in the React Nexus conference, and I was excited of what this podcast can bring and how it can help
Hmm.
folks that watch your channel. And I'm excited to share all my insights and hope that people actually find something inspiring or something useful from my journey. My name is Akash Hamirwasia. I currently work as a front-end engineer at RazorPay, and previously have interned at a couple of companies like Small Case, Akamai. And yeah, apart from work, I actually like building products, working on open source projects, and giving talks at various conferences.
Yeah. So I kind of started following you. I think since 2022 when I went to FOSS India. I guess you were giving a talk that time, and I kind of spotted you as somebody who loved to make things, and then followed by 2023 in React Nexus, and very recently concluded React Nexus also. We met. So I kind of started following your work since then, and you probably built a lot of stuff in last 2 to 3 years. When I go to your website or maybe on GitHub and start seeing things. So I'm just curious, is like how all these things started. One, what is your maker story?
Mhm. So honestly, I would say it didn't have to go this way. It just happened. So I like since my childhood, I liked building things. That time it was more physical stuff, like actually arts and crafts, just simple models, building them. And then I liked learning by breaking things apart. So if I had like a toy car which runs via a radio controller, so I used to break it and see how does it actually work. And slowly that mindset sort of shifted in my laptop. So I had this powerful system. I could write computer code and tell the computer to do whatever I wanted it to do. And slowly that just sparked my creativity to try building stuff. I saw a lot of games. I'm pretty sure a lot of programmers' stories start with computer games. So I used to play GTA, San Andreas, and a bunch of other computer games, and I wanted to build one of my own. Um, that didn't happen. Maybe someday it will. Who knows? But I did end up learning
Mhm.
programming. Tools like Unity, Blender, a lot about 3D animation, and then slowly I decided I want to build products. Like I want to build tools that can solve my own problems in a way. So
Mm.
that is when I decided to go into HTML, CSS, JavaScript, and I built a bunch of projects. Um, One thing that I've always tried to do with my projects is take it a step further, not just leave it as a GitHub repository that is just stale. I try to go the extra mile, deploy it, make it usable so that anyone who wants to use it can actually try it out. And just doing this multiple times for various projects, building projects with languages that I wanted to learn. And slowly, yeah, this collection grew, and I landed up with building so many projects.
Yeah, it's awesome. I think the couple of things that I can get from your, pointers is like, one is like you started learning programming almost like to build things. It's like you wanted to learn probably HTML, JavaScript, CSS because you wanted to build something. And then other thing was is like one very vital point that you mentioned, that you didn't leave your projects like half cooked. I think most of the cases we developers start the projects, and then what happened is like one fine day we have some other priority, we go to that, and that project is never see the light anymore, right? And it just go out of our sight. So this is really amazing. So first thing first is like, when we learn programming, we usually do like, we learn the programming, we watch tutorials, videos, and read tutorials and all these things. We don't do practice, or we don't do much of making. But your story is different. So what made you like start learning web development? Was it like organic because you wanted to build the web apps, or some other thoughts?
Yeah, so this is a very interesting story. So initially, as I mentioned, I was into 3D graphics, Blender, Unity, all sorts of things. And in Blender, you can write scripts using Python. So you can add a button in the
Mhm.
UI that runs some code. So that was my first interaction with building a simple user interface inside a tool that can run some custom action. Um, so I explored a lot with Blender scripting, and slowly I wanted to switch to a direction where my tools that I'm building is not inside Blender, but it's outside Blender. So simple applications that we use on a day-to-day basis. I was like, can't I build them? Or I see a nice tool. It's a very expensive tool, and I can't really afford it, but it's very easy to build. So I'm like, okay, fine, let me try building it. I might as well just try building it and learn along the way. So that is how it started. I wanted to build inside Blender a custom UI, but that wasn't possible because I'm restricted within the constraints of
Mm.
Blender. So I was like, okay, fine, let me try building my own desktop application. So I found Electron, which seemed like the
Mm.
best
Yes.
solution to build cross-platform applications. You just have to write code once. And that time I sort of knew HTML and CSS. I didn't know anything about JavaScript, but HTML was something that I mean we were taught in school. So I knew basic HTML and CSS to get my stuff done. So I found Electron. I was like, okay, let's build a desktop app. I did that. And when I actually built
Mm.
the executable, I realized it's like 100 megabytes in size for a very simple desktop application. Um, and I was like, okay, I've built this application, but how do I share it with others? Like desktop
Mm.
applications, you have to install them and then people use it. Unless you have a very good reason to use that app, nobody is going to install your desktop application. And then slowly I started pivoting towards web because I thought, okay, if I'm writing HTML, CS, and JavaScript, I can just deploy it on a web server and call it a web application. Anyone can use the URL, directly go to the
Mm.
application and use it. So that is how it again organically came in. I realized the power of web, very open platform, very inclusive. If you have a mobile device, if you have desktop, any device, if you as long as you have the URL of your application, you can use that application. Um, and it was much easier to get started as well. I didn't have to worry about installing heavy IDEs on systems which slow the system down. Started very simple Notepad, Sublime Text, then VS Code, slowly transitioning to more powerful editors. But yeah, that is how I
Yeah.
got into web, and ever since I've stuck into it because I've just realized the power of what you can do just on web, and seeing like the crazy products that are coming out on web. I am really excited about what we can do.
Yeah, and you are also making some of the craziest stuff. We're going to talk about them. So one other point you spoke about, like going back to your side projects. So how are you different in these cases? Because 70-80% developers that I have met, maybe sometime including myself, who won't go back once we leave, or maybe on 10-20% projects which are very close to my heart, I'll go back. But how do you make sure that you go back?
So, one of the themes that is common across all my projects is in some or the other way, it helps me in a personal way. So, with a project called Blaze, which is a peer to peer file sharing app, I use it daily to transfer files from my desktop to mobile. With another product called
Mm.
Slanted that I've built, that is something I use for building product videos of other products that I'm building. So, a lot of these projects that I've built indirectly is making me efficient in what I do. And every now and then I figure out, okay, if this had this feature also, it would have helped me. So I go back, improve it. It doesn't matter if anyone else uses it, but it at the end of the day, it helps me and solves my problem, which is how I end up,
Mm.
circling back to the projects that I've worked on and improved them. Having said that, I do have a graveyard of a lot of dead projects as well, which never saw the light of the day. But I think if you don't have a graveyard of enough projects, you haven't made your feet wet in the entire field that is there.
Yeah,
So
you're not a
having a
developer
grave,
then.
yeah, 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 you need to have a lot of dead projects to actually get some good ones out.
Absolutely, absolutely. So I think you mentioned about the file sharing product, the file sharing app you have. I was actually, when you're talking about like you build a desktop application and it's like 100 MBs or more, is that something triggered you to build that particular app or particular project where you wanted to share something very quickly, or is there another other story? And you can even show that app or share that app, by screen sharing if you would like to, so that anybody watching this podcast later, they would be able to see it as well. Yeah.
Sure, sure. So I can give a screen share of this. Let's see.
Yeah, there is a share option. Yeah. Yeah, I can see
Hopefully
that.
my screen is visible. So
Yes, it
it's
is.
called Blaze. Um, so Blaze is an application that I started building in 2018. The reason I started building this was so it was my college exams, and I realized that I have a lot of notes on my mobile. But while studying and actually preparing for the exam, I need my notes on the system. And that time I
Hmm.
realized, okay, there are tools like ShareIt, Zender, but those are all native apps. You have to install the native app on your phone and then download the executable on your system. Um, and I didn't really feel comfortable with it because, I mean, installing an application just for sharing files in 2018, it felt like too restrictive or just too invasive of privacy. So I decided, okay, let's build a very simple application on the web. It's called blaze.now.sh, and it runs completely on the web. You open it, you don't have to sign up. In fact, it just asks for your nickname. I think I have nickname set up, and it takes you to this homepage over here. And what you do is you simply create a room and make sure 2 3 devices join that room, and you instantly start sharing. So here I have my
Hmm.
Mac. I can in fact open Blaze on my phone as well. Let's see.
So on phone also, it's available as a web app only, right?
Yeah, it's the
Not
same
as a native
URL.
app.
No, no,
Okay.
no. It's the same URL. In fact, it's a progressive web app. So if someone wants to add it to their home screen and get some native functionalities, they can do that as well. Um,
Perfect.
so I've just joined the room from my mobile, and you can see there is my mobile as well in this room. And a bunch of other folks can also join in if I want to share files with multiple devices at the same time. And once I'm ready, I can simply send a file and it starts sharing to different devices. Let's see if I can actually send it over here. So yeah, I've
Yeah.
just selected a simple video, and as you can see, it's a 22 MB video. I think the way Blaze works is using WebRTC and WebTorrent. And if folks have used torrenting before, like
Hmm.
torrenting any files, this is a similar technology as that. So it converts your file into torrents, and then it shares them across your devices. It is going, I think, it's kind of
Yeah.
slow
It's
because I'm already streaming, but
yeah.
yeah, this is basically how it works. So you don't, and the interesting thing is these files don't go to a server. It's completely peer to peer, from my device to my from my device to my laptop, and no server in between. So it's very simple. It runs on all devices. I can run it on my smart TV and share files with it. I don't have to build a native app, and a lot of people use it too.
Nice.
So
Yeah, that's what I wanted to ask. Is like, do you have any kind of track on like how many people are using Blaze today? Do you kind of check that periodically?
yeah, I have a very simple just Google Analytics setup. So
Okay.
I just track the number of visitors. I get around 300 to 400 visitors per week. So that I count as a success for a very simple application that I built in 2018.
Obviously, man. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
And since 2018, I mean, the if the sustainability is like that, that people are still visiting and using, that's a great, great win. Yeah, of course. So this particular application that was like people say like necessity is the mother of all invention. So probably you had a need and then you went ahead and started creating it. What about the other one? That you kind of use it as a base for all other user interface, all other products that you're actually building. Talk about that as well.
Yeah. So I guess you mean Slanted. Yes. So that's my hero product, as they like to say. So Slanted is a very interesting product that I started building around 3 2 3 years back, and it's a it's a tool that allows you to take simple screen recordings and convert them to like really nice
Mm.
3D product trailers. So an example like this is a 2D screen recording, and with Slanted you can make it something like this. I call it something that Apple would like to present in their keynotes. Um, and fun fact, I use this to actually present another project of mine at India Force last year. So Vyakran was the project, and I was giving a talk where I was launching Vyakran,
Mm.
and I used this tool to create like really nice, fancy product videos. And I got some really nice feedback. Like people were astonished and were curious what tool did I use to create those videos.
I was there in the hall actually when you were talking about Vyakaran. So, so yeah, I watched you talking.
Yeah. So it is pretty easy to get started. Again, one of the things I try to, do with my products is make it very easy to start. So currently I'm signed in, but you don't even have to create an account to use Slanted. And then what you can do is you can select some media file and you can drop in some nice 3D animations. So let's say these three, and you can customize the animations even more if you like. And once you hit play, your video will play in this center screen over here, and all the 3D transitions will get added. There are a bunch of other effects that you can enable too. For example, maybe reflections. So this adds like nice HDRI reflections. Think the HDR is
Mm.
loading. Let's see. It is visible. So there is a room, sort of a window that you can see, right? So there's the light that is coming
Yeah,
from, and
yeah, yeah.
it's nicely reflecting. And finally, once you're done creating, you can export it into a nice MP4 file and use it anywhere you want. Um, this was like a
Right.
really challenging project. And I learned like a lot while building it. And it's like one of the most technically complex and a project that I'm really proud of.
I want to come to this. So this is Maker's story. Now I want to get into the developer side of yours, right? Uh, let's talk about this project. So you told it was a challenging project. So what was the major challenge that you faced? And if you can talk about the tech stack that you used in this, that also will be very, very good thing for us to learn.
Mhm. Right. So, coming to the tech stack, so this is again a web application and it uses technologies like React, Next.js, Chakra UI for the design system and the components. And
Mm.
apart from that, the backend is Firebase. I mean, there's not a lot in the backend right now, so Firebase is only used for authentication. And apart from this, there are payments also in this product. So for that, I use another product called Lemon Squeezy, which is an amazing tool to accept payments online.
Okay, cool. And talking about the challenges. So what are the top three challenges while building this?
Yes. So one of the biggest challenge was designing the export process for Slanted, because
Mm.
the thing is on the web, exporting a video is a very niche thing. Like, I mean, there are hardly any application on the web that would require exporting videos completely on the client side, and that is why there's very little documentation on how to go about building something like this. And on top of that, the challenge is the output that you get with traditional APIs that the web provides. It's very poor quality, so it only allows WebM file format, which is not compatible in a lot of social platforms. And the frame rate is also not fixed, so there will be parts in your video where it will appear to lag, but there will be other parts which run at like 30 fps or 60 fps.
Mm.
So because of all of these, it was a very tough nut to crack, at least the export system. But yeah, like after digging through a lot of documentation, I figured out there is an API called Web Codex. So it's a very new API that allows you to like encode, decode videos on the web with like full hardware acceleration. But again, the challenge is because it's a new API, there's like very little documentation online on it. So I had to figure out a lot of things on my own. In fact, if there is anyone watching and wants to learn about the export process, I had actually given a talk about this exact thing at JSCon. Think I might have to share that tab separately. Let's see.
It was last year, right?
Yes, yes. So JSCon India. Um, and this was the talk that I had given. So pushing the limits of video encoding with web codecs, and it has like
Mm-hmm.
the entire learnings that I had while building the export process, condensed into a nice 30-minute video for anyone. So I had spent like 30 days probably learning everything, and the entire summaries in like 30 minutes. So anyone who's interested in learning about this can definitely watch this video.
Yeah, yeah, I'm sure that people will be definitely interested in this. I personally I'd be interested. I want to watch this and try to learn from this one. Great. So now you spoke about the lemon squeezy, which is Stripe now.
Hmm.
So that means there is some payment gateway and payment stuff associated with it. So that means from maker, you're also getting into a seller of your own work or the creativity. So how do you plan this? I mean, I've seen many makers who are great makers. They are making stuff, but they're really not utilizing this part of this fold of their side of it. They're just creative. They're not probably monetizing stuff. So how did you think of monetizing it? And if you can share some of the things, because there are a lot of makers out, they will learn from your experience as well.
Hmm. So this was actually something. So one thing I would like to clear is it's very hard to become a seller of things. Like we can build stuff, and even today, even though I'm selling some products online, I wouldn't call myself a very good seller. So it just happened that I realized that I'm building such nice products. And there was a point where I realized, okay, I mean, people have already called out that your projects, the side projects that you have built, they could be their startups of their own. So I was like, huh, might as well try to take a hit at it. So I spent like 2 years building Slanted, and I realized that okay, there's a lot of unique and innovative tech that has gone into it, and there's not a
Mm,
product like this in the market already. So I wanted to try giving a paid subscription or a paid model of this product as well, and see if people actually go about using it. If they don't, well, fine, I can just make it free and anyone can use it. But I wanted to test the waters if anyone would be interested in, well, a side project that I worked on for the last 1.5 years. And it actually worked out. The good thing is it's very easy to get started to sell online today. So, like if you want to accept payments, there are tools like RazorPay, Stripe, Lemon Squeezy, which makes it even easier. And what you have to do is just have a really killer product and some channel to actually make your product stand out and share with others. So I already
mm,
had a killer product, I knew. But the second part of the puzzle is, well, how do I share this product that I've built to other people? And that is where I feel I'm still lacking. But what I did was I went on a bunch of forums. I went on Product Hunt because this is a tool that makes your product video stand out. So I went on Product Hunt and pitched it to multiple creators over there. And I went to a site called
mm,
Indie Hackers. Again, a lot of makers building products there, looking for ways to present their products innovative. I posted a lot on Twitter. I used the hashtag build in public, and shared a lot of updates of the process of building a product itself. And it just so happened that organically, a lot of people, a lot of big names in the industry also took notice of what I'm building, and they decided to
mm.
sign up and give Slanted a go. So that was like a really humbling experience. Like someone who's just very new into his career in tech, built a product in his free time, launched it on the web, and there are people out there who have paid real money to actually use my product. So that, I mean, it's just like I'm just humbled and I'm like really grateful to them.
Yeah, that gives a kind of great motivation and boost, right? I mean, you don't expect sometime that okay, people are coming and will be buying the things that I'm doing, but once it start happening, then you also feel that credibility back that oh man, I have built something that people are getting it, so it's a great thing. It's a very validation and verification of ourselves itself. So I think it's a great point. Like, why to shy off from monetizing things? There is no crime of doing that. If
Hmm.
you are providing value, you should get at least something back. Now, other side of the piece, open source. So you have been an open source contributor, as well. And if you could share with us, is like what open source mean to you, and what kind of impact open source had or have on your career so far. It will be really awesome to hear.
Hmm. So I would like to start by sharing how I got into open source. Again, this was very organic. So I mean, there's this notion where I see there's a lot of videos online right now. With those titles, get into GSOC. How
Yes,
should you get into open source to get that 1 crore job? A lot of those clickbaity
yes.
videos. I mean, so there's like two sides of this coin. When I started, which is not that long ago, there weren't a lot of these videos online. So that time you could say, okay, we don't have enough resources. But now when we have a lot of these
Mm,
videos, it's hard to find the good resource out of all of those resources. um, so I started again very organically. I found this site called GitHub, and I realized, okay, this site seems like people are just uploading code and sharing online. I'm like, okay, fine.
mm.
I'm browsing GitHub. I'm seeing some projects. I'm like, okay, I want to download this project. I don't see any download button. I see only a green button called clone. I don't understand what clone means. I don't know what Git is. I don't know what clone means. I'm looking for that download button, and I accidentally click on that clone button and see the download zip button. So I'm like, okay, cloning probably means just downloading. And slowly I realized that, okay, maybe this GitHub platform that people are using is like Google Drive for storing code. It just makes your code look pretty. It has a nice file tree, directory structure. It has a way to like create issues and to do items that you want to work on in a later time. That is how I got in. I was like, okay, I have a project on my system. Maybe the system might stop working 1 year later, so I must like save my code and put it on a cloud platform. And GitHub seemed like a no brainer because it looks really beautiful. And that is how I unknowingly got into open source. Slowly, I started building projects. I'm like pushing code online. I don't like care what other people think of the code I'm writing. I knew it's like pretty bad code because I just started out, but I got something working and I was like really happy with it. And that is how I got into open source. And I slowly learned that, okay, this open source phenomena is much bigger than just GitHub. It's a way of
Mm.
building software, sharing software, and making the world a better place, one tech at a time.
Yeah. See, the thing is, like, you called out really well. Like, when I started with open source, I think I was like just a senior engineer in my organization. I think it was way back in 2015 or 16. I even didn't know that term open source that way. But somehow a customer was using a library which was happened to be an open source library. And when I asked the maintainer, he told like it is going to take 6 months. So I looked into the code. I thought, okay, I can fix it, and I did the PR and all. It got accepted, and then I shifted to customer, and then later I realized, okay, I have contributed to open source because there is no such way of letting you know, like, hey, you have contributed to open source, or these are the ways to contribute to open source. But now there are a lot of stuff. You really have to find out an authentic, I would say, resource which can
Hmm.
guide you, like, how to contribute to open source in the true spirit. It's not
Yeah,
like for
yeah.
getting the name or fame, right? So that's what the things are getting a
Mhm.
little bit diluted and polluted.
Mhm.
So in the open source world, did it happen for you is like you made a contribution, and then you figured out like, okay, this is a different world. It is not about building in silo, it is not about building alone. There are people who are looking into your code, and you are accountable for that, whatever you're pushing. Was there any such incident or anything that you want to share, if there is any?
Yeah, so I remember like the initial few PRs I used to raise in some other projects. So that time also I was like fiddling around with Blender scripting, and I found another Blender add-on or a Blender script that someone had written to make lighting inside Blender easier. So I was like, okay, I want to contribute a feature that I have in mind.
Mm,
So I did a lot of hard work. I took a long time to understand the code they have written, because again, I was like very new to this. So understanding someone else's code is like the first part of the problem. Then actually writing your code that fits in well with the style of the author, doesn't break any tests, and just works for the feature it's supposed to. That was again a challenging part because, well, my fresh programming brain would think in just terms of like 2 3 years down the line, but the maintainer just sees it as a big picture. So they used to suggest changes, and I used to get sometimes offended that, okay, it just works. Why do you want me to make this change? How does it make the code better? um, but the thing is, something that I took forward and I think is true even today is, um, I don't want to treat my code as my own in a way. Like I have accepted the fact that code can change. The code I've written today is bound to change tomorrow, and I'm in a way I'm
mm,
no longer attached to the code I've written. So that way I was able to like make changes, take recommendations from the maintainer, and I was open to any feedback. So if they didn't like any code I wrote, I was like, okay, fine, let's discuss and come up with some other approach to solving this problem. And I think that that open-mindedness of accepting feedback and realizing that code is temporary, it can change at any point. That takes some courage because we are attached to things always. But letting stuff go, especially code which can change so often, is hard, but it's important.
Yeah, it's true. That is very true. Don't get too much emotional and attached to it. Yeah, that's a learning. Any of your projects that you have built are open source is something that folks who are listening to us can contribute to. You want to share some thing about that?
Yes. So Blaze is a project that I shared. It is open source. In fact, let me just share my screen.
And I'll be sharing all these links, later in the description of this video, so people can figure it out easily.
Hmm. So Blaze is a project that I started in 2018 that is open source. It is
Yeah.
something that I still maintain to this day. The project itself has slowed down. You can see the last commit was 1 year back, but that is because I
Hmm.
consider the project itself as complete. It's a file sharing app. It shares files. I don't know if I want to like make it like a super app for everything. So that is why like minor bug fixes or any feature suggestions you can raise and we can discuss, but in a way I sort of call this project in a way complete. Apart from this, there is another project that I've worked on called Vyakran. So it is over here. This is a project I launched at India First conference last year, and this is a project to visualize formal languages in automata. So if you're someone who is
Hmm.
interested into compiler design or formal languages, that part of computer science, you can look into this project. This is a very new project. There was actually a FOSS hackathon a couple of days back, and a lot of folks have actually raised PRs, which I'm yet to review. But yeah, you can go over the issues. There's a lot of interesting features to work on in this project, and yeah, it is a very interesting project as well. Lot of visualizations, a lot of like programming language design, console design, a bunch of stuff. So for someone who is interested into these kind of things, definitely do take a look.
Yeah, awesome.
Apart
I
from
think this link will be shared anyways. So people who are interested, please go and check it out because I keep getting a lot of requests saying is, I want to contribute to open source, but I don't know where to start from. You right way said like the starting point should be GitHub. Even if you go to github.com/explore, you can put
yes.
filters and all to figure out a lot of projects that kind of match your technical expertise and all these things to pick up a project and get started. But what we are talking
Mhm.
about here are the pointed projects, 2, 3 pointed projects. You can go ahead and start contributing straight away. Sorry, I cut you off. Akash, you were saying something.
Uh, yeah, apart from this, there is projects in other languages which I started just to learn that particular language. Go is something like I'm sort of excited about to learn and see what I can build with. This is a very simple like AI powered CLI that I built. So it is to generate like mock data. If you're working on the front end, you need like mock placeholder data for your APIs when they're being worked on.
Yeah.
So this is like a very useful tool to generate it.
Awesome, awesome. I have few other questions related to this. As you told about the learning, right? You are learning something new. So when you learn something new, I mean, what's your strategy? Like when you try to start learn something new, you always have some kind of use case in your mind that you are learning and trying to implement that use case, or you're just learning and then figuring out later point of time what you have to build. What's your strategy?
So I think for me, it always starts with a use case. Um, so even if I don't have a strong use case, I try to like come up with some product idea. If nobody uses, like I'll just have fun building it. Um, so I
Hmm.
start with a use case and then pick tech, and that tech is usually what I want to learn next. Not something you would do in a production grade application, but like if I'm building like a backend ish project, I would probably pick Go because I want to learn that language. Um, in fact, recently I've tried learning this thing called WebGL, writing GLSL
Hmm.
shaders, because that's a very interesting part of the web which not a lot of people have explored, but there's a lot of interesting things that you can create as well. So I've been learning WebGL, writing shaders. A lot of math gets involved in them, but it's fun. Like seeing math get converted into art and paintings in a digital way. It's beautiful to say the least.
Fantastic. Yeah, I think the learning should have a goal. That's how I see it. Without goal, if you just learn. I think we call it like the tutorial hell or whatever it is, like it's going to come to you. But if you have a
Mhm.
goal and you're chasing that goal through your learning, I think that's really awesome stuff. So one other thing,
One thing
Akash,
I
is
would like
like,
to share
yeah,
is
right.
for people who are
Sure, sure,
listening
sure.
to escape tutorial hell. The easiest thing
Huh.
is once you finish a tutorial, essentially copying the project that was taught, try adding more features to it. uh,
Mm.
maybe change the theme of the project, add a few more buttons, a new feature completely, or try rewriting it in your own way, in a different language, to say the least. That way I think you sort of make that project original, because it doesn't look like the same project that was taught in the tutorial. And I'm sure you learn a lot as well by just exploring a bit more than what was taught in the tutorial.
Yeah, that's amazing. This is a great point. And in fact, once you do that, you can share that with the author of the tutorial or the YouTuber whose video you are watching. They'll be more than
Mhm.
happy to share, your work around the world, because the basis is something that they have taught you and you have improvised on top of it and built something. So that will also build some amount of connections and the networking with the person. So please leverage
Mhm.
that. It's a great idea. I was talking about another thing. It's like, see, the thing is, you have a regular job, and you are also somebody who is writing, who is speaking in conferences, who is building stuff. I want to talk about time management, because most of the time the prime excuse is not about how will I learn this thing. The excuse is about when will I learn this, and if I learn also, when will I do something. I have only maybe weekends, nothing beyond that. So how does time management work for you, and if you have any tips for for us?
Hmm. Um, One thing is, like, at the age I'm in currently, I don't have a lot of responsibilities, so that way I have a lot of free time as well. Um, and apart from this, like, again, I have a job at RazorPay, so a lot of my significant time goes to like actually building RazorPay and improving the product as a whole. The free time that I get is usually in the evenings or at like night. Like, I consider myself a night owl. I stay up night, build stuff. I go deep into rabbit holes. I find the small thing that's not working, and I'm like, why is it not working? I have to fix it. uh, and I spend like a lot of time just thinking about various ways I could fix that and eventually come up with a solution. So sometimes there are moments when I'm not in front of my system, but I'm still thinking of some bug or some feature that I was working on last night. Maybe not healthy in a way, because you're not attentive to the thing that you're doing right now, but if anything that I'm working on is usually at the back of my head, and it's something that is just sitting there and cooking. Um, and once I get the time at night, usually I go about like working on that code and getting thing out. Um, it's something I don't consider like, okay, like I have to do this, I have to take out time now, I have to like spend 2 hours and then track that 2 hours. I don't do any of that. I just go with the flow. Like, okay, I have this problem to solve. It is interesting. Let's sit down. Nice dark room with one light turned on, and then code out and get that thing done.
You don't get into the pressure, like I have to finish it maybe by tomorrow, or after a week or within a week. You don't put that kind of pressure on you and burn yourself, right? That's what you're saying. It
No, no, no.
goes like easy.
Yeah, there is no deadline, which is again the best part of it, because you have deadlines at any job where you are at. But this is something that you are working on, so you can take it slowly, but don't take it so slowly that you completely let it go. Um, yeah.
Yeah, quite good, very nice. So what are the upcoming ideas you have in mind? Like, what are you learning, or what are you planning to learn next, and what are you planning to build? Because your learning is always associated with building something, so both the questions are relevant, I guess.
Yeah, so one thing, I mean, from learning perspective, I want to learn the Go programming language. Reason being, I've heard from multiple folks that for a project like Blaze, which has a lot of networking involved in sockets just for like transmitting metadata, Go is a much better alternative than using Node.js. So maybe I'll explore seeing how Go, works in the whole Blaze project that I have built. Apart from that, I've played around with the language. It's very easy to grasp, especially as a person who comes from such a dynamically typed language like JavaScript. I tried my hands on Rust. failed miserably on
Mm.
the first attempt because of the memory management and the borrow checker. With Go, the syntax is very clean. It has a garbage collector, so you don't have to worry much about the memory. It's a much easier transition for a JavaScript developer to go. So I want to try that out. Apart from this, I'm also learning WebGL. um, I want to like try building a very interesting like library of interesting shaders that people can use, because you find these nice cool websites that use, in fact even stripe.com has like a really nice background gradient effect, so that is built with WebGL. And I want to like explore building a collection of these shaders, different WebGL effects that you can embed on your website to get a nice effect. So these are the two things that I'm like actively learning right now. And apart from this, like a lot of work is going in Slanted. um, Fun fact for all the viewers, there is a big update coming for Slanted, which will
Wow.
have like a lot of new features. So a lot of my time also goes into building Slanted as well.
Excellent. I mean, there are lots on your plate. I'm very glad to hear that, and I'm looking forward to see all these updates coming up, and we'll get to see more products, get to see more stuff coming from you. As we're coming to the end to this podcast, Akash, is there anything that you would like to share? Maybe some tips from your side to all the developers listening to us, all the makers, or what would aspirants? Anything from your side?
Hmm. I think just try looking at things from first principles. Forget about those goals for some time. You might have a goal to land that high paying job, or do something really amazing. Just start doing something that not a lot of folks are doing, and you will find you have come a very long way when you look back. Yeah, that is how I started. I didn't know about what I was doing, but it ended up like taking me to the direction where I actually wanted to be. So yeah, just follow that path.
Excellent, excellent. So thank you again for joining this podcast and being my first guest of tapaScript Lab. So it's truly an honor, hosting you over here. And I was really excited that when I'll talk to you, and as I was saying, somehow we are having a matching dress, without really planning for it. All the best to you. All the best to all the work that upcoming, and I'm sure that we are going to meet somewhere in some conferences and going to again chat over things. And everyone listening to us today, all the links that Akash showed or spoke about, everything will be in the description of this video, so you can go ahead and check it out. Akash handles, social handles, his GitHub, everything is mentioned in the description as well. Please follow him on the social media because he is doing a lot of great work. Follow his GitHub. I think more than any social media, I would say that that's something that you must follow. That what he is doing and what is coming out from him, and learn from that work. So with that, I'm ending this podcast and I'm coming back again very soon with another maker, another story, and we'll learn from that as well. Thank you, Akash. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much.